So, no, right? Encoding overloader. Those are my first official words. Thank you. Also, can I mute myself? Not actually. I need to hear myself. I mean, why do I even do that? Where did that come from? I saw a new opening the thing to hear myself, the page, and there was a new. I was gonna read it out loud. Then I realized it might fucking dox myself. So you know what? I saw some new, but I'm not going to say it. That's my comment, and that's also I guess something to think out while I try to hear myself. Can I do that? Can Why does it take so long for this page to load, brother? Hello, test. There we are. What's up? What the treasure train? Why is it called treasure train on Twitch? On Twitch in Spanish? Is it not hype train? It's not hype train anymore. Did they also? Wait! Shut up, guy. Why is my audio so weird? Why is the audio so weird? Anyways, it works. No, it's my voice. It's just my voice. But we are fine. Uh, what else am I missing? I did this, I did that. I didn't say it, but I was thinking, yeah, you know what? We need to have some invisible text. So let's try to add something like that. Some not invisible, not yeah, invisible is not the correct choice of words anyway. Anyway, give me like a minute. Now I have an idea, but at the same time, I don't have an idea. It's like a combination of the two. It's the middle ground between I want to do something, I don't actually know what to put in here. Let me try. Oh wait, there we are. Now this is about me having to take like a 5 second break before actually starting. So yeah, let me let me do that. Thank you very much. You can hear me hitting not even my mic, sorry. It's, what is it, my headset? Um, am I forgetting about anything else? I don't think so, right? I don't know. Nothing actually happened lately, so I just in case. Today we don't have Mahabharata, right? I said, yeah, you know what? On Friday we are going to do that, and I didn't check my own schedule. It's wow, yeah. I'm so professional at this thing. I'm I why what? I know why it disappeared. I forget that magical ability that I have of hitting move everything to the background, and it also makes everything else disappear with that. Anyways, what's up? Um, Now for real, sorry. I kinda forget that I need to actually change scenes, but here we are. Welcome. Good evening. What's up? What is anything actually going on today? I don't think anything special is happening. So yeah. Uh, Good evening. It's, I don't know. I should probably say something in relation to me being late. I have one good enough excuse, that is, the phone wasn't charged. And if it isn't charged, I cannot be here, you know? So that's my excuse for why we find ourselves here so late, anyways. The real point is not that. That's not the real important thing, I guess. Um, Everything is fine, I assume. It has been, yeah, not a long while. I guess, I don't know. It's funny to take into consideration that the days sort of feel so long in a certain sense. It's nice to see that more than anything else. It's good to see that with 24 hours it's possible to do so much. It's a combination of that other, I guess, yeah, sensation of wow, we don't have enough time to live in terms of things that we want to do. I don't know. It's sort of funny to see that in a, I guess, comical way, it gets to happen that one can experience many things in a particular context of I need to actually try for stuff. You know, I have to actually try in any way to go anywhere, so to speak. It's complicated, but it's about possessing a sort of plan. And yeah, in a way, it's interesting to see that stuff is always moving. It's just, I don't know, is the correct word overwhelming? Maybe something along those lines. The whole ordeal of being always makes itself present, or makes the whole action of just, being there interesting. And just because of that, it also feels quite good, quite nice, actually. So yeah, it's it has been about that lately, I guess. I don't know. I I I did say before, I remember, that I don't particularly want to bring it up as in something that we should be in itself spending so much time. This is not, I think, the place to have those sort of discussions about, oh yeah, you know what, we need to speed up the speed at which we consume content. I think that's, at this point in life, I can say it seems to be an interesting, yeah, an interesting path to always find ourselves in, but it's not in itself the most entertaining thing to be focusing on. It's along the line of, you know, we can always be pseudo discussing things, sort of, basically, or assuming that we're actually discussing anything, but it's one of those endless conversations or zero progress conversations about, yeah, you know what, we need to be watching things at a faster speed. No, 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 no. We don't need to do that. We don't need to be watching things at a faster speed. We don't actually require to do such a thing. Such a thing is harmful to the human brain. No, 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 no. We need to be watching stuff at a faster speed. And I guess sadly it even gets to a point in which arguments for both sides get created and whatnot. But I don't know. Luckily enough, uh, it's something that we can take a little bit of notice about. And yeah, in this case, it's not an obligation to actually. Oh wow, yeah, yeah. You should. You know what? You should try to watch stuff at a faster speed. Or wow, you do that? I cannot believe that out of you, man. How can you do that? You particularly? No way. You're ruining yourself. You need to speed this stuff down. No. Yeah. The point is, personally, what I was trying to go for. Yeah, I have been doing that, and I can say that personally I find it interesting how much more it is possible to consume in comparison to the average experience, the normal speed experience, you know? It's much more interesting to be capable of discovering even more. But yeah, it's no matter what, it's the possibility of exploring things in general that makes it interesting, that makes it worthwhile. So yeah, that whole thing in this case also is funny enough, I assume. So I wouldn't worry. I just see it as interesting and try to continue down that same lane. I guess it's, I must say, in a certain way, something that seems to be interesting in certain aspects, but something which just requires sexual engagement, you know? So it gets complicated to watch so much more. Not in terms of, oh wow, yeah, it's so hard or it's so taxing. It's a willful action. It's not a matter that we can actually find ourselves getting angry about the things. So yeah, it's entertaining, and I was trying to make that point in terms of, yeah, days of 24 hours, which 8 end up being spent almost unavoidably on resting or having to take breaks. Even yeah, I mean that's something funny that in a certain way we don't actually like to take, or not particularly I myself, but I have seen known people who does not like to take, I guess, 8 hours out of their day to actually rest in terms of sleeping 8 hours straight, but rather they have this tendency to, I don't know, maybe I sleep eight. No, I sleep 6. I sleep 5 hours. But I also need to take constant breaks throughout the day to keep functioning. Maybe I need, this nap, this siesta, these other things that make me function otherwise. Or that allow me to perform to the same level of the rest of the world. It's like, I don't know, we try to avoid something that we are not required to actually avoid, and that makes it funny in a certain way. But I don't. I think it's just interesting. I was observing that, and I found it, I guess, something surprising to some degree. More than anything else, because you hear that from people who are very concerned about, I shouldn't be wasting so much of my time and whatnot. And it is still the necessity to rest for a certain amount of time to allow oneself basically to have those times in which we get to calm down and such, to have enough of those occasions and similar so that we don't have to actually malfunction. And in the end, the point that I was trying to make is, yeah, it's very possible to live more than a fulfilling enough life in 24 hours days, I guess. How would you say it properly? Yeah, days of just 24 hours, or I guess 18 if you have to sleep. But yeah, it's it's nice. It's just continuing to do that throughout the whole repeated sequence of not just as always, not just one day of oh wow, yeah, I tried very hard and maybe I learned quite a lot, but I had also to pay quite a big toll with my physical state or whatnot. I I assume most people learn to self-regulate, so yeah, it's just trying to do that all the time and also be capable of finding ourselves here at the end of the day. In my case, and yeah, that's funny. That's funny. I wouldn't know exactly if funny is the most correct way of referring to that, but yeah, it's interesting to say the least. And, I don't know. I I can admit that it is something worthwhile, and I assume it's also interesting to see that we have so many other challenges to go through. And yeah, my point with all of this was I I didn't talk about it properly. I know I have hinted at it, I guess. I haven't really talked about it, but it's complicated. If we want to seriously define what is to actually talk about this stuff, what does actually define properly articulating something? Having spent 20 minutes talking about things, having spent 5 minutes, having just said one clear enough sentence, is having talked about things? Who knows? The point is, sorry, I haven't really explained. I hinted that, yeah, maybe in the Discord, maybe in other places, we're going to be finding more stuff in terms of, oh, yeah. These are going to be the ideas contained within the streams that hasn't happened, and something that did occur was a change in schedule. I did at the very least get to say, yeah, you know what, we're going to be resting. No, don't expect anything from me, brother. That was at least partially performed, but I don't know. I still don't like to truly mention way too many things about all of that. I don't think it's truly useful. I was just tired. It was a very long day, so yeah, it was a an overestimated amount of tiredness that I found within myself. So it was necessary to, instead of having the possibility of streaming at night and then reading the Mahabharata, skipping a little bit that and going just straight to the next phase of sleeping, so that was good. But yeah, that's besides that, I don't know. I haven't I guess it has been pretty fun, I can say, to see so many things, to find. I okay, let me start with this actually. I have finally started to understand a little bit more I sort of talked about it recently. This idea of synchronicities and whatnot. Yeah, we can stay at the most basic level and just define them as synchronicities and things that sort of reoccur throughout life, sort of sprout back without any other reason. But at the same time, it's not a sufficient enough definition. It's just something that can be passed as good for the lack of true interest in developing anything better, let's say. And in this case, I find myself to be thinking about, yeah, you know what? I I I have said it before. The accumulation of knowledge makes it so that one of the not even funny things. I say it with a huge level of what is it of sarcasm behind it. As in, oh yeah, this is actually horrible. Um, we we have actually quite a lot of stuff, quite a lot of, in the case of missing stuff, I mean, quite a lot of information. In these modern times, we have many ways of explaining almost the same phenomena to make it understandable from way too many disciplines. And yeah, my eternal issue is always to see that. I remember the best example that I can give is, in this case, something that I also talked about recently. That was, yeah, I want to actually study not from everyone else who I already did, but particularly from this one theory maker. I have already read about the same phenomena, I think from other 5 or 6 different authors. It's interesting to see that. It's unavoidably true that many, many concepts, many things, many parts of life, let's say, are already explored by a plethora of viewpoints. But the issue is to find the one that works the most, and not only that, that is sort of the most basic requirement that, yeah, you know what, we need to have something that works for both for you and me. That's sort of expected. But also, you have something that actually represents a useful piece of knowledge for us, while at the same time being valid enough, not just for us, but also for the action of sharing it with anyone else. And this leads to an endless creation of hypotheses, I guess, that doesn't make it be a fully explained idea. We have many possible, as far as I understand, the proper language is still hypothesis. A thesis in itself is a fully fledged idea which doesn't need to be so observed or carefully observed as into to try to actually find out if it has any error or not. A hypothesis, on the other hand, is actually a lesser quality thesis. But, anyways, the point is, we have many hypotheses about this stuff, and we just choose the one that works the best with us, and that's the personal case. We can easily choose the one that we like the most, but the issue is the world keeps generating them, and not just as an endless action that just happens, and no more to say to that. No. It's and that's the common thing to see in way too many areas that happens. And also something funny, something incredibly funny has been, I, I I have been, for example, researching lately this idea of, is it researching? I don't think it is the proper word, but sorry for using it in the wrong way. Anyways, I have been researching out this idea of conversations as one of the many things that always I have always had a little bit of interest on, and I finally decided to actually look into. And yeah, something highly interesting is to see that even if we get to be professionals, we cannot actually, I guess, make more than 20 minutes or so of the utmost interesting material out of just one thing. Even if ideas are incredibly complex, we can, at the best, or the actual expression will be at worst, assuming that it is truly something that requires a completely new frame of understanding. Okay, even that takes just 1 hour, assuming that the person who is trying to follow what we are saying can create all of the concatenations of ideas and connections to reach the final conclusion. As long as that happens, not even the wildest ideas take that much time to explain. And that leads to, in the action of creating stuff, of trying to explain stuff, not just making stuff up as in creating it, but rather of trying to materialize proper explanations about events of the world, let's say. What ends up happening is sadly that we find ourselves quite a lot surrounded by many other things that are not truly in themselves useful to what we are saying. We add layer upon layer of extra text, of paraphernalia. That's the most simple way to define it. To We add decorations onto what we are saying and more layers of just nice looking stuff. Because suddenly, even in the language realm, we can be persuaded a lot more merely because it tickles the brain the right way, let's say. And suddenly, this happens even with concepts. So, it's a long action of adding more and more and more to other things that are already created, given, and what's not. And what ends up actually happening also is, funnily enough, we find ourselves having, I don't know, 20, I guess. If I have to actually give examples instead of just trying to make it up all, you can have different theories about interpretations of dreams. For example, what I was saying before, I wanted to research on that. Okay, you have that from the more basic schools of understanding. You have that. You have even the esoteric modes of explaining that. You have all the other methods utilized by different religions. You have all of the different, even if you only take into consideration the major schools of stuff like psychology or psychoanalysis, you still have another 5 or 6 schools of interpretation with their own particular methods. And in the end, the true messages that can be extracted might be worth just, let's say, 20 pages or so from each. And even more, when you contrast all the contents of one another, you might find, I guess, at the very least, 50% of content correlating to one another, having very similar narrations, very similar ways of doing stuff. Okay, so is this good? Bad? I wouldn't say it is any of those things. It's just the way in which we tend to utilize language as an structure to explain the rest of the world, and suddenly it just makes it so that the action of trying to find out anything requires quite a lot more time, suddenly. But it's fine. I cannot really get angry about that. I don't think I am angry because I had to sit here and try to explain something for a little bit longer than if I just simplified it to the most basic forms of understanding that we can all utilize to some degree. Sadly, language in itself also requires quite a lot of proper usage of what is being expressed. I already talked about that last time. We needed to pay attention to what is being expressed. So to not do that as the person, as the speaker, to not do that as the speaker is also sort of failing on my end. So unavoidably, it's you sacrifice a little bit the speed at which you can go for the sake of ensuring that at least it doesn't get as harder to follow everything. So yeah, it's just that in the end, trying to tie everything that they haven't talking about together once again. In the end, many things overlap with one another. Many ways of interpreting and explaining phenomena makes or arrives at very similar conclusions nowadays, and sadly, it just consumes time to actually go through them. But it's fine. I cannot truly say, wow, it's so annoying to be having to explore everything. I have already expressed that before. It's so much better to actually know things or to actually have the possibility of knowing stuff. If I actually, or if we actually knew nothing and we had as a humanity to start explaining everything, imagine, for example, that we lived, I don't know, in the year 1200, for example, if we lived around those times and we just had the possibility of recurring only to things like the theological explanations about the phenomena, like, oh yeah, yeah, my baby have this thing that only nowadays we can talk about and call or address as sudden infant death syndrome. My my newborn suffered from this condition. It was the wrath of the gods, and I am being punished for my evil deeds. I am a cursed person that will never get to live a good life. Stuff of that sort is much, much more distractful than to just, oh wow, it's so annoying. I have to spend 5 hours of my day learning something. It's so annoying. And after that, I actually learn about it and acquire new tools to keep living the rest of my life more appropriately. It's so annoying. It's so incredibly annoying. Wow. So yeah, no. I don't think it's actually all that bad. Once again, once you get to contrast the picture, it becomes quite a lot better. But it also is an action of, I wouldn't say humility, it's an action of proper understanding that, yeah, to some degree, things have degrees of separation that otherwise make them not so different from one another. It's fine. I am just trying, as always, to make peace with that reality. Let me say it like this, because there is, I guess, a promise. For example, let me build the narration from this side. Since I was younger, I have heard quite a lot about the stuff that supposedly might make the world completely different. And I wasn't trying to be skeptical, but unavoidably, once you hear something so revolutionary like that, like I don't know, let's say I can, or all of us can try to make something together that might change the world. Sorry, I had to, for some reason, the cable of the mic somehow ended up tangling with other cables. Anyways, I hope it's better. I was trying to say, you hear stuff that sounds incredibly promising, and out of an innate response to anything that might be incredibly positive, out of nowhere, you ask questions to see how true or false this statement actually is. How how can how much we can actually rely on what is being said, how much we can actually trust on the person who says, I don't know, I am the new Messiah. I have come to liberate the world from its suffering, stuff of that sort. It's the endless discussion about things that or conditions, situations that lead us to those other events in which we just want to know if it is truly possible to change or not. So I have seen way too many fields in which it also at the same time happens that wow, somebody is proclaimed to be a very useful author. Somebody is proclaimed to be a very interesting person to hear about. And sadly, it's not that in some cases, or in most cases actually, anything gets said new. It's just that the way in which I can present it personally makes it sound better. And just that already is strong enough to create a new ripple effect into the rest of reality. That's how things actually work, and I cannot really get angry. I don't think it's worth to get angry at the mode in which we operate, so to speak. It's just that, yeah, it's quite. Yeah, let's say like this. It could be quite enigmatic if we never stop to think about it, because you will believe that we wouldn't actually require so much time in staying in the same piece of land, in the same plot, in the same idea, in the same discussion and whatnot. But at the same time, also, it's personally, it's easy to advance from those things. But once more and more people are participating in all of these discussions about stuff, it makes it harder to actually move ahead. More so because what I mentioned before, we can be here all day discussing the usefulness or uselessness of something. It might not change anything at all. After we have spent 20 hours, even if we made the best claims that could be created about this stuff, let's say like this. For example, we are in the category of philosophy, the easiest philosophical discussions to have, quote unquote, is stuff like, oh wow, yeah, let's talk about the existence of God. Does philosophy accept or negate God? Stuff of that sort, It's it's the easy, low-hanging fruit to spend 20 hours at. Do we actually need to do that? No. Do we actually want to do that? Maybe. Are we gaining anything out of doing that? Truly no, because we spend way too much time talking about this stuff also that we don't give a single fuck about. That's the complicated part of this formula, that for some reason we forget, or I guess we cannot so easily admit that, yeah, you know what, we are going to be spending the next 5 hours of our day talking about this stuff that no one actually cares about, and that makes it so much more complicated to also advance in, or yeah, to keep creating other things, but slowly. Let's say like this, very, very slowly. Uh, Personal efforts, continuous efforts can make the difference and can also unavoidably move not stuff in other directions and whatnot. So that's also very good, I must say. But I don't know. I just think that it is quite crazy to see that. You wouldn't assume that so easily it happens that we end up having nothing actually going on. Otherwise, it's, I guess, yeah, the the expectation of a human being is, wow, this world in which we have lived for so long might have so many wonderful things, and suddenly it's just a continuous process of having to realize, come in contact, and slowly accept stuff like, yeah, you know what? Suddenly, this world is quite empty. We don't have as many things. We don't have as many developments. We are not truly moving in any direction. So we we could try stuff out. We can try to make things better, but it doesn't truly mean that it is going to happen. So it's complicated, anyways. It's as always something complicated. But the true point in itself is just that, you know, we we can still, from a personal perspective, that's always what I already explained. We don't need to spend so much time on things that we don't actually care about. So it makes this whole process of getting to knowledge, I wouldn't say easier. We still have to sift through many ideas, way too much content that might be completely unnecessary paraphernalia of sorts that does not add. It just exists for the sake of, let's say, teasing, or not teasing, appeasing the senses, and making the more animalistic side, or what's the more proper word? It's feral. Yeah, the more feral side of the brain, that aspect, the more wild and untamed aspect that is much more associated with senses and with, yeah, those things that we can also call instincts and whatnot, that requires a lot of more, I guess, stuff to keep itself entertained. We don't have the possibility of enjoying as much something that isn't visually hyper elaborated. Not because it needs always to be like that, but sadly, because if it isn't, we might not feel as good. We might not find ourselves having such a good time. We do not have the possibility of having that, sadly. But even then, it's not all that bad, actually. I must admit, it's something funny. And just because of that, it's something that I also enjoy myself. It's it's another part of life. It's another part of finding out also, let's say, how everyone tries to navigate around that issue. Oh, yeah, yeah. My message is, I don't know, try to be happy, but we are going to be spending 20 hours trying to go around that message so that you can get to the same conclusion as me. But with all of these other cautions in place, with all of these other cues, mm, extra additions to make it feel smoother when delivered and whatnot, it's fine. But It's not obligatory. It's just that it's there. It's a part of reality that we have always the need to have, and no much more than that. But it's fine. It's fine, I guess. Anyways, let's. The point is just that, and it's funny. It's, as I was saying, something that I have been always trying to grapple with, something that I have been always trying to fully get, and it just needs time to be fully understood. Not because it is complex, but rather because it's one of those phenomena that you wouldn't be capable of fully classifying if you don't actually try to stop and see reiterated throughout time, let's say. That's what also makes it interesting from another point of view. But anyways, next thing being in this case, let me try to actually, before I forget, go for what was the thing that is found in the title of today. As I always say, yes, this thing above my head and whatnot. Okay, that thing says surprises on every corner. I don't know. I guess it was more than anything else about the idea itself of, yeah, it's very funny to see how much every single day can be so different. It's nice that even in the quotidianity, the repetitiveness of existence, all of that gets to be entertaining, and all of that gets to be very, I wouldn't say chaotic, but just something worth paying attention to, and that is very crazy. It's life so much full of those tiny instances that don't exactly deserve attention, but could have attention and could have something that keeps us tuned to it, and that allows the person to enjoy. I wouldn't say themselves, I wouldn't say existence, but enjoy things more. And yeah, in in many cases, I can also say I have seen this thing of also so many other events are awaiting, so many other possibilities, so many other. The word itself is surprises, but I guess it's the broadest sense that you can apply it on that it is being utilized as. It's truly anything. A surprise is anything that goes out of the norm, that makes life feel not so repetitive. That is a surprise. That is enough to be considered a surprise in this case. And yeah, life has so much to give, to offer. It's nice to see that, and I have to say that it's just surprising to see in itself how capable we are of talking about that. I don't know. Sometimes I like to say that I am somebody quite cynical, quite depressive in the ways in which I talk about this stuff. I always, yeah, I guess I have been hearing it quite a lot lately. This whole idea of, oh, yeah, you sound like a fucking older man. Not like an old man, as in, oh wow, yeah, yeah. You have the voice. No, 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 no. It's the mode in which you talk about the stuff. You always sound like somebody who's complaining, who's eternally complaining about the stuff. It's so annoying to be around such an angry old man in spirit because you don't find anything to be happy about. Blah blah blah. And it's funny to hear that tend to see, but okay, what are we actually appreciating? What are we actually placing a little bit of our attention on and seeing as something good, as something nice, as something worth talking about? What is that thing which we can say is good? What is the things that we can look at and feel satisfied from? To say, to gain a little bit of satisfaction from. What are they? Where are they? And I don't know, I don't see those questions being asked in any way. I don't see those things moving us in any direction. It's an enigma, I must say. But it's still something funny, something good enough. It's just that I don't know. Only through so many repetitions it can make an effect. But sadly, yeah, it also is the endless act of trying to consider that before anything else. Otherwise, it doesn't feel truly as fulfilling. It's not something so entertaining or so capable of captivating anyone. You know, it's it's a life which ends up having nothing to talk about in terms of nothing, not even nothing new. To some degree, we don't actually require novelty to always be happy. You can see that with people who are addicts or who this description of live in eternally looped lives. They don't need a novelty in that, but it's just that yeah, we don't have exactly new things in any other way. We don't have exactly additions or gains of any sort. We just have this tiny bit of something that we cannot truly appreciate. And it's that's why I always try to talk about it when it is a given possibility. Those tiny happenstances of life that make it worthwhile. It's, yeah, unavoidably it's complicated to talk about because otherwise, as always, it sounds like we are the crazy people for trying to focus on them. It's this idea of, wow, yeah, life can already be good enough. I am not obliged to have external things. I I don't know which other even more pompous quote can we utilize to describe that? It's not about the exterior, it's about the interior. Wow, so true. No, it's just man. There are good things always out there. Sometimes it's not about them existing or not, because they might have always been there. Sometimes it's about us wanting to actually perceive them, wanting to actually make any kind of effort for them to take any other sort of form in our life. All of those other things that make what happens matter, the ways in which we also let the events be, or in which we impede their existence. That's what makes them so puzzling, I say. But it's fine. I don't think it's all that well. I don't think it needs to be all that well. Besides that, is there anything else? I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think out that deeply. I didn't have it exactly that in mind as the main thing to talk about. So yeah, that's for that idea in itself. That's good enough. But anyways, let us do actually the work that we have to do. It's as always, no, it's something very unguided. I guess completely different new topic. Sorry for not making it so clear that we're switching. But yeah, it's as always something that I don't actually have spoken about so much. But yeah, I think it's finally time to at least try to clarify what are we going to be talking about in the title of the streams, in the title of stuff, somewhere, not have to trust so much the lack of the events. Okay, I guess I don't know. Is it necessary to say it? Is it useful to actually share a lot? I guess yeah. There is this interesting concept of sometimes we don't actually share stuff because we truly believe that we're gaining something. We are just sharing things because we want to get the validation from other people who can hear or en- enthusiasm about the stuff, happiness and interest about the stuff. It's that more than actually wow. This is something that everyone needs to know about. But anyways, let me say it before actually starting the new topic. It's this funny idea of in some cases it's actually good to think about what you are going to say, what is necessary to say. It's this concept of in the whole idea of conversations. Yeah, that sometimes it's good to actually pay attention to what is going to be talked about, what is going to be said, what is going to be part of the expressions utilized. What is the point? What is the goal and all of that? I mean, best time on it instead of just hoping for it to naturally happen. So yeah, trying to do that. Not exactly even because I heard it just recently. It's just more along the lines of an inner decision of yeah, you know what? It's also useful for everyone else, or not even everyone else, more than anything else actually. For me, to start with something that brings a little bit of certainty, and if I am already going to be doing that, I don't really have reasons to not share that here at all. So we can slowly integrate those. But at the same time, as always, it's complicated. This format that we utilize is so weird in a certain way. I understand why so many people don't do it. I wouldn't say that it is something special or complex. It's just something that requires quite a lot of time sunk into it to end up sitting for so long saying so much stuff. It doesn't happen naturally, so it's it's understandable. But in itself, it's not that it is bad that it happens or good. It's just that yeah, it's re- it still requires development, and sometimes, at least personally, I don't actually try that. It's what I was saying before: stages of comfort and points in which it already gets to feel good enough, and just because it doesn't feel like it is falling apart, it's already sufficient enough. Maybe not exactly, but as long as it gets to feel like that, it's somewhat good, somehow, somewhat nice. somewhat positive, I assume. Anyways, point being, or going directly into the actual things, because that was literally just a tiny segment into everything else. Sorry. Um, Title. What is in the title in this case of the stream? Alexithymia. That's that's the first thing to talk about. Actually, I guess it's yeah. I know that I have like a 20 different fillers. I have all of those things that are counted by the thousands instead of any other number. I have an overcomplicated world full of things that are complicated. I have so many uncertainties based on those things that I always say that I don't know about. So, in this case, ah, I wouldn't trust myself if I say, oh yeah, alexithymia in itself is another thing that is also quite complicated to talk about. It's just something that I guess has been slowly becoming more popular. That's the actual mode of starting with this discussion. It's something that I have seen slowly appear in places. It has been slowly popping up in, I guess, as always, my culture is not a very, even if we try to sit under the umbrella category of philosophy, I'm somebody who mostly tries to learn about psychological stuff. So yeah, in my field of places that talk about psychology, things, people, stuff related to all of that, there is something very funny that is this stuff that also has a relation of, wow, yeah, we are here talking about sensations. That's the way to start with this, actually. The world, I mean, the easiest way can also be to just look the world up. That's the easiest answer out. But let me try to narrate it in a proper way. It has started since quite a long time. There has always been this long discussion, this debate about, oh yeah, yeah, symptoms get created and illnesses and problems and more bad things and whatnot. All of that always arises and happens and exists outside of anyone's control, and is in itself completely uncontrollable and whatnot. And even if it might partially be true, there are still other parts to it that I didn't get to fully understand until recently when I also got to talk about this and understand it. There is a part in the brain that is it, if I don't remember incorrectly, or if I remember correctly, the expression utilized was there is a part of the brain that is in charge of sensing pains. And something that happens is when we think about the pain, we can feel it almost as if we were relieving the negative sensations. That is also associated even with emotional sorts of distress. Why does this matter to us? Why are we trying to talk about this? Because the concept itself is not just that thing in the void, but also how this enters in relation, in a dynamic relation with this other side of the brain of language. Something very funny, something very useful has been the usage of language, the discovery of language, and whatnot in the human beings. And what happens is when when we get to actually talk about this stuff, put words into the sensations that we have, the way in which they flare up in the brain stops being so centered around just, oh, yeah, you know what? We have these things, so let's say we have a certain level of distress about bad things that happened in the past. But that in itself might not be clear enough. Not because it must be clear, but rather because it simply does not possess a proper explanation for it. We might be, let's say like this, we could always be feeling somewhat bad, but if we cannot even locate where is it that we feel bad, why is it that we feel bad, we might have an endless problem that does not get to have a solution. Once we slowly get to put words into it, we don't just have some despair, some anxiety. We slowly get more specific, and with that also comes the capacity to actually approach the problems. In my field, it's getting named as Alexithymia. It's getting called this condition in which the person is incapable of actually articulating themselves out their problems and all of that. And it is slowly developing itself into something that is becoming central almost more than anything else, unavoidably, because it encompasses quite a lot of stuff and it tries to uncover quite a lot of things that otherwise we don't talk about. And it's fine. It's quite even enigmatic to see that in itself we have many things of that same sort that we always tend to ignore, that we never want to properly discuss, or that we are not so willing to utilize our time on finding out and understanding and such. It's, I wouldn't utilize the expression, it's vexing, but yeah, it's interesting, if nothing else. So that is already a good starting point. But why, once again, trying to continue shaping this more, why do we actually try to care about this? Why are we needing to talk about that? Because, yeah, it seems to be a new promise, a new wonderful present promise of, oh, well, yeah, we are getting to, we are finding ourselves in an era in which we can name things more now than ever, in which we can make use of our words to actually locate stuff and be capable of discussing it and give answers to things that might have never even been questions before. So, the human must take the responsibility of the words and use it in any meaningful way. That's so true, Fi, but at the same time, that's also so complicated. It's incredibly tiresome to try to talk out some stuff. There are, as always, no? There are some things that are utterly tiring when we try to pronounce ourselves over them. Not because in themselves they are all bad or anything like that. It's just that, brother, it's complicated. It's draining to try to bring some things up. Some, in many cases, why would in, why will it be different this time? Either it's It's sort of the wrong approach, but at the same time, it's also just another tool in the tool shed, you know? So if we get to slowly talk about this stuff, it seems to be the promise that we can do something about it. I remember hearing today this funny quote. It's the eternal it's the eternal quote of, oh yeah, awareness is the beginning of the solution. To some degree, we can supposedly assume that being aware about the things allows us to solve them more easily and to do something with the problems, that we can actually identify something that is once again implying that we can actually figure out anything out of what we see. It's it's naive to say that, oh wow, yeah, I have this problem. I'm a 5 year old and I feel lonely because my family leaves me alone. I will figure out a way in which I can actually survive this negative, stressful situation. I don't think so. I don't think stuff like that happens. We can articulate many things, but that's that's sort of attacking the point that I was literally just making. So maybe it's not so necessary to do that. At the same time, still it's still quite doubtful of any statement in itself to try to spend so long to say, yeah, yeah, we have this condition. Once again, Alexithymia refers to the condition in which a person is incapable of referring exactly to the things that they are feeling, the sensations that they are having. So, what they must try to have, what they must try to do, is to slowly be capable of pronouncing themselves over it, being capable of identifying, talking about them, and slowly giving a whole dictionary of descriptions to their world, world of sensations, so that they can also reach conclusions. And I must assume that this works for the average person, but in any particular case in which it's not something so out of the ordinary, like, I don't know, I am in a bad mood. Why? I don't know. Can you analyze it? Yes. Okay, you do it. What do you find for the problem? I am in a bad mood because I lack sleep. Okay, sleep well. Easy enough. In some other cases, that's the issue of modernity. I feel tired. Why? I don't know. Can you analyze it? Yes. What can you identify as the probable cause? I have a certain sensation in my stomach area. Now I need to get analyzed. Now I need to go through so many tests. Now I need to waste to invest so much money on my own health. Let's not use so negative language. I have to invest. I have to invest my time, my money, my everything on all of that. So it will be a very funny challenge and a very funny adventure to go on. But I might not actually get an easy or enjoyable solution just because I was capable of saying what I was feeling. But I guess this to add the final coffee into the nail before leaving that go for now. Also, this has to do to some degree with the importance of recognition at all against some things. Mostly because, to some degree, there is this sad reality of, yeah, I could try to identify what happened, and I could actually try to see, to understand, to talk about, to highlight the issues and whatnot, and be capable of getting to a solution, of getting to a place in which I can feel or try to say that I might have a minimal clue as to what is going on. But this also requires a lot of not just patience, but also a lot of will to confront things that otherwise might be completely valid. Let me try to give an example. I feel tired. Why? I don't know. Can you analyze it? Yeah. After analyzing it, what do we find out? I feel tired because I play video games until it is 5 o'clock in the morning every single day of my life. Can you fix it? Yeah. Are you willing to fix it? Maybe not. Maybe I have to part with something that is fundamental to me. Maybe, and that's also something very funny about psychology. We can assume that it's a very useful tool once it's just being displayed in the most positive environment possible, you know? But once you take it out of its particular ideal conditions, oh yeah, I have to confront that I have this habit of mine that might be a little bit self-destructive, let's say. I don't know. I like to drink alcohol every single weekend and end up passing out from how much alcohol I drink, and maybe having to reconcile with that reality is also having to reconcile with altitude reasons that lead a person to do that lead a person to have any sort of addiction of that sort. It's not so easy in itself. It's a promise that if you are the kind of people for which this was initially thought for, this might be good, but once you take it out of the context, once you try to apply it, okay, let's put into words what we are feeling. Why are we feeling the way in which we are feeling? Why our sensations are these ones? There are some cases in which it also invokes or brings up incredibly bad stuff. And that's once again, we haven't even really talked about the most serious stuff because that's Alexithymia is also a condition that can be found within certain people. To keep it short, to not directly go into that, but to at least acknowledge it. It's also part of people with PTSD, you know? That's, once again, it's not so easy to talk about it. We can assume that it is good to say, yeah, talk about your stuff, but also, as always, I guess, talk about it with something that actually wants to hear about it. Or that's, I guess, this is the complication, the extra layer of complication that they add, that they are not willing to talk about. Yeah, you need to talk about it with someone else. No, you need to be capable of articulating the things that you are feeling for the sake of more than anything else, feeling yourself good later on once again. And in some cases, you don't actually even need to share it with anyone else. You just need to be capable of showing to yourself that now you understand why things are the way they are in your life, why things feel the way they do in your existence. And that is only possible if we can actually sit down and think about them, struggle with the bad sensations, and bypass the first layer of discomfort. Not it's not always an obligation. That's also the issue, the personal issue that I still have. The promise is, oh wow, yeah, yeah, you need to be with a therapist. I don't know, brother. Not every therapist can talk about things like alexithymia. It's not that it is an unknown concept. It is known, but it is still something new. I guess if we probably wait 40, 50 years, maybe we have found that an era in which we can actually solve it. Maybe by then it can then become a good enough solution. But until that point comes, damn son, I don't know. I wouldn't be so sure about that. But anyways, that was my point. To finally, I guess, mention it, I have probably since this year started, it has played a good role in my life, and it has been very fun to do that. So it's finally time to bring it up here also. Otherwise, it remains in the bag of completely unmentioned things. And this one, at least, doesn't require to remain there. But yeah, that's it about being alexithymic and whatnot. Just think, confront stuff, and slowly get to possess a more proper position about them. Things get better only when we slowly work on them. But yeah, that will be it. Now, next thing, because also this is I guess the most out there of the bands of today. This whole idea of state of platforms, state of Twitch, state of YouTube, how much algorithm is changing, technology, censorship, and whatnot. I don't know. I the word that I like the most is always fear mongering and terror campaigns and whatnot. That's what it feels like more than anything else. I don't know. It's complicated to say that we actually have so many problems. Not because we don't have them. I don't think that we live in an utopia of any kind, but it's just that, man, why do we have such a need to always highlight everything that might be bad and wrong? Not every aspect of life is so bad, and it's a little bit of, even if there are issues, it's not the end of the world. We live in a very bright moment of uncalmness, and we get even more alarmed by everything. We find ourselves so moved to action, even for things that we don't actually care about, for the sake of doing something. At least, in that sense, it's not completely unexplainable. It comes from the reflections of the whole world in general that has already failed before to react in time. Sadly, we're still adjusting. We're learning when it is proper to react to stuff, when it is not proper to do so. So we are, for now at least, reacting to much more than what actually requires any kind of reaction from us. So in this case, what I am trying to tie it directly with the title, we talk about the stuff like, oh yeah, the state of Twitch, the state of Vtubers, whatever thing you want to talk about, that people likes to make it look like it's completely over. All of those things come more than anything else from a need of trying finding out how much we can actually say rather than a true discovery than a true issue to talk about in terms of, oh yeah, we actually have a problem here. I don't know. There are problems in other areas, but we have already sort of talked about them for today. It's not necessary even to truly say, oh yeah, no, we have more serious problems here. They are all of them. They exist, but the point is, in itself, my personal answer to those questions of, oh yeah, internet is changing. Is it going to be over soon? I don't think so. I don't think that. Even if companies make mistakes and whatnot, even in those cases, it's not going to be something that actually destroys anything important so rapidly. There is no thing that is going to be destroyed so, so fast. It's just that we have a tendency to once again, overreact about things. And sadly, I personally at least am starting to see it more and more. No, not truly it is something bad, but it's just something that otherwise goes unspoken. It's this, oh yeah, we we have problems with the platforms, we had problems with the ways in which they are run. Yet it's not the end. There is no massive exodus of people. Not even if that's the weirdest thing to talk about. Even if we can say that things are going bad, let's assume, okay, you were only in a stage of copium, okay. Even if things are going bad, the projections that we can make for things going even more south, taking an even worse turn, all of that stuff is being done in relation to not random stuff. The capacity to evaluate the reality that we possess already. It's crazy to see how much we are sometimes capable of forgetting that time is not something so random out there. We actually get to have a little bit of wiggle time for changes. Even the things that are going bad are going to happen quote unquote slowly. You can argue if a year is long or not. But yeah, it's crazy to see that at the end. In this case, oh wow, internet is taking a wrong turn. Internet is slowly getting more censored. Internet is blah blah blah. Even if those things are happening, it isn't over. It's let's say like this. One of the funniest things that has happened has been how we became so dependent on modern ways of consuming news without the news channels themselves existing. Yet nowadays, maybe even more than at any other time in history, we find ourselves believing anyone who comes screaming at us that there is a new enemy in the horizon arising. As in, there is a new problem that is going to destroy us. Unavoidably screaming, even if it is something that is no big deal at all. There are so many of those instances. But in the act of, recognizing them themselves, we fail catastrophically. We cannot say that there are things that we are overstating, that we are worrying way too much about. But it's fun. I don't know. I wouldn't get angry about it actually. I wouldn't say that it is something to truly find ourselves irritated about or anything like that. It's just another one of those things in the bunch of stuff that happens that otherwise we just don't think about. We just don't try to mention in any way. And it's fine. But anyways, I guess that will be it for today at least. Now we have done it. And next time also, I promise that we are not going to be as late. Sorry. We are not going to be as late. But yeah, it has been as always a very good time, a very good stream, a very chill stream. We will see tomorrow. Basically, it should be Mahabharata because I did say that on Discord at the very least. There is going to be Mahabharata tomorrow instead of yesterday. So yeah, we get to slowly repair our failures and whatnot. But we have to still see where the analysis takes us and whatnot. So yeah, we have to cross that bridge. But that only happens once we get there. So do resting now, right now. Rest to get alive to tomorrow and to do all of those other things that will enable us to be there. So yeah, as always, thanks for being here, thanks for watching, thanks for lurking, thanks for everything. It has been a very pleasant session. Take care, and yeah, until next time. And even if that doesn't happen, thank you for being here. It has been a wonderful time. Thank you very much. Good night.